We provide resources for growing your business, and this is our webinar series. It's Thursday, September 20th at 12 p.m., and this is scheduled for 1 hour. We're going to be talking today about recruiting and scaling your business. And so as a few people come on board, we will get into a few other slides. I want to call attention to the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. There's two different call outs. One is a chat box and then one is a questions area. And I've got Jonathan Howdyshell on the line with us today from the Women's Business Center as well. And he'll be monitoring that chat box as well as the question panel as we go through this webinar. So if you do have any feedback or questions as we go along, don't hesitate to type them into those areas. Everybody on the call today is muted for right now. Until we get to our questions at the end of the webinar. And that's why I'm calling out those boxes. All right, so today's agenda, scaling your business, when and how to recruit the best employees. We'll start out today just describing a little bit about the Women's Business Center and what we can do for you. And then we'll jump right into our content and go from there. So the Women's Business Center is promoting economic equality in Wyoming through successful business ownership. And we do that in a few different ways. We are a nonprofit organization that assists individuals who want to start or expand small businesses right here in the state of Wyoming. And so the three client services include really business counseling and coaching. We also do networking and educational opportunities like the webinar that's being presented today. And then we also have a program for access to capital. And so a little bit more information on those things as far as our business counseling or coaching. This graphic on the left-hand side really describes that. We try to mentor, motivate, coach, and inspire you in order to grow your business or start your business. We also will work specifically on business plans with you if that's something that's required. Networking educational opportunities, just like the one today. We do host this webinar series, and you can also find it on our YouTube channel to look at past webinars that have been done. And then there's a recording of this webinar that's happening right now that'll be posted on that YouTube channel by tomorrow morning. We also do monthly roundtables, and those are in-person networking opportunities around the state. And then lastly, our access to capital program, which is our microloan program. We do loans anywhere from $500 to $50,000 to help fund business startups or expansions. You do need to be located here in the state of Wyoming. And if you want more information on that, you can contact Waldo Smith. He's the director of that program, and I'll have his contact information at the end of this webinar. All right, so back to today's agenda. Today in Scaling Your Business, we're really going to cover three core areas. The first is key employees and coverage areas. How do you know what those areas are? The second is compensation and benefits, really coming up with that compensation package and benefits, how to get creative and what to look for. And then lastly, recruitment and advertising. When you are ready to hire, what are the recruitment strategies and advertising platforms that you can use? And then again, we'll end today with a Q&A session if anyone has specific questions about some of the content that we covered. All right, so my name's Christine Langley. I'm a business counselor with the Wyoming Women's Business Center. I've done business counseling and coaching for the last decade with Wyoming entrepreneurs. And I also have owned several small businesses by myself and also with family members. My husband as well as my daughter have had a business. I'm going to use that in an example today. And I'm also a real estate investor. So hired lots of employees, whether it was through a corporation that I worked for or my own personal business. And so I've got some real life examples to share with you today, and then also just industry best practices. So when it comes to key employees and coverage areas, before we start building a team, we really need to understand where and why we actually need to hire. And so I want to start by identifying just the functional areas of your business that could be filled by an employee, a contractor, or some type of service provider. You know, all the things that we need done in our business on a day-to-day basis doesn't necessarily have to be done by you or by a paid employee. It may be a service provider, you know, or even a board member a partner, identifying other people that can do some of these jobs. And so depending on the stage of development of your business and what your available cash is, you'll decide how best to fill that need. But right now, the objective is just to identify and understand what those areas are. So let's take an example to really illustrate this concept. And what I'm going to use is one of my previous family businesses. So my family started a company called Coach's Scoop. And this was back in 2010. We primarily did this for our daughter who was graduating from college, and we wanted to make her a business owner straight out the gate. And it was her job to really own and operate this business. And so the first question to us is really, what is this business? Is it a service company or is it a product company, right? So that's the first question that you want to ask yourself. Are you running a product company or a service company? And for some of us, and certainly in our case, the answer was, well, it's both. Coach's Scoop was an ice cream company, and we actually manufactured our own product line, and then we distributed that ice cream through a food truck service business. So we owned and operated a food truck as well as a manufacturing commercial kitchen where we made our own product. So recognizing that this was an ice cream business, your assumption, of course, is that this is a pretty simple business, right? We're going to make the ice cream and then we're going to sell the ice cream. So let's go ahead and take a look at our organizational chart where we broke out what all the roles and responsibilities were for this business. All right, here we go. So a little bit more complicated than making ice cream and selling ice cream, as it turned out. We had 4 major functional areas in our business. And so sometimes even the simplest concepts can become really complicated in actual practice. And some of you may have found that as you started your businesses. You thought, how hard could this be, right? I have a client that has a yoga studio, and what she wanted to do was teach yoga, right? She's the yogi and she wants to give yoga classes. But the reality of running a business is you spend a good majority of your time doing a bunch of other things than maybe what your core competency is. And so because in our business, we were both a product and a service company, we had both manufacturing as well as operations. Now, when it comes to the titles of these functional areas or functional categories, that's not really as important as just grouping certain roles and responsibilities or activities together. So in my business, I called it manufacturing and operations, and then I had an administration department, and then I had sales and marketing. In your business, you may have different titles or different organizational groupings that you want to name for those top line kind of bucket areas, and that's totally fine. It's whatever makes sense to you. These are just what made sense for Coach's Scoop and made sense for our functional areas. So you'll notice that I've listed kind of the core responsibilities under each functional area or department. And I want you to try and do the same thing right now for your business. So grab some paper, try to list what the functional areas are for your business. Are they similar to what you see here on the screen? Most people have some kind of a marketing and sales function. Most people have some sort of an administration function. Now, you may break those out into multiple areas. This is a living, breathing document. As your business grows, there may be changes to core functional areas, or there just may be additional roles and responsibilities that you didn't have previously. And so there's really no right or wrong way to group departments or divisions. Like I mentioned previously, some companies require they actually break out marketing from sales, for example. So they may have a separate marketing department and then a group of maybe outside salespeople or even inside salespeople, but the marketing department is working maybe with all online type resources. So there'd be 2 different departments or functional areas. Other businesses maybe break out administration, right, into a couple different areas. Maybe human resources and the functions of, hiring and employee services is totally separate from what their accounting department might be. In our small business, we did it all in one area. So our reasoning for these 4 core functional areas was really based on our size and also our owner capacity. All right, so by now I'm hoping you have a few areas identified for your business. And let's go ahead and take a quick poll and see how complicated maybe your charts came up. So I'm going to come over here to that panel on the right-hand side, that control panel, and I'm just going to ask a quick question here. How many functional areas or departments have you identified in your business? So back of the napkin, as you were working on your piece of paper and I was describing different functional areas, select for me how many areas or departments you identified. Was it less than 3? Was it 4? Was it 5? Was it 6? Are you super complicated and you've got 7? What is your business looking like? All right, I'm going to give you guys a few more seconds. We've got about half of the votes in right now. You may be scrambling on your piece of paper trying to figure out your core 4 functional areas. Again, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just what makes sense to you. All right, good job, everybody. Let's close that poll and let's take a look at the results. Okay, so we've got about 1/3 people saying 3 or less, about 1/3 saying they've got 4, and about 1/3 saying they've got 6. All right, so not too complicated. Probably the vast majority of the people on this call are going to be small businesses, and so it would make sense that you have 3 or 4 functional areas. All right, good job, guys. So now that you have the beginning of your organizational chart, the next step is to really highlight or circle what your highest priority areas are. And these are the ones that you believe require staffing right now. So this next step is to number those in order of importance, right? You've got some core areas in your business that you've identified. Maybe you scratch down, some roles and responsibilities that are important under those core functional areas. And the question becomes, what's your number one, right? What's your highest need? And so beginning with your highest priority, you can start answering really important questions to help you make this decision. And the first is a questioning strategy that I like to call WHIP. And it stands for why, how come, I don't understand, please explain, right? So this is just a questioning strategy that I use on myself sometimes in order to help me drill down on all the reasons that this hire is a priority. The next question to consider is if an investor would agree with your line of thinking or reasoning. And so some of you may be thinking, well, I don't have an investor. I'm not necessarily looking for an investor right now. I may or may not look for one in the future. But the reason that I have people ask themselves this question is because it causes you to look at this hire from an outside perspective. And so what do investors care about, right? If someone were to invest in your business and then you told them you were going to hire this particular position, to help you, what's their priority? What do they care about? The answer is they care about getting a return, right? And as a business owner, most of us care about getting a return as well. But sometimes our judgment can get a little clouded in regards to what type of return, right? Is it hard dollars that we're getting in return, or is it quality of life? So do your staffing priorities align with investors getting a financial return? That's really the question. And remember that your desires regarding growing staff may not necessarily align with the business growing revenue. And that needs to be recognized and considered if that's the case. So I'll give you a quick example. A lot of my clients have come to me over the years and they want to immediately hire an administrative assistant or a personal assistant once they start making a certain amount of money. And the reason that they want to do that is because they feel overwhelmed, right, between work and family, and they really want almost a gopher, right, to run some errands, maybe transport kids somewhere, check their email, write a couple letters, answer the phone, just do sort of a catch-all position so that they're not feeling as overwhelmed as a startup business owner or entrepreneur. And while this is certainly a quality of life hire, no question, it really remains suspect if it's actually going to scale the business and generate more revenue. So our final question always has to come down to capital. And that means the cash required to actually make the hire. And it's difficult to give you a firm answer on how to evaluate whether your business can afford to hire someone. The answer often comes down to just your own personal risk tolerance. You know, I've had clients that want 1 year of salary in a reserve account before committing to a hire, right? That would be a very, very low risk tolerance. I have other clients that want to hire someone once they have 2 weeks of money in the bank, because from there they assume the employee is going to earn enough to cover themselves going forward. That would be an example of someone with a really high risk tolerance. So you have to decide for you what makes the most sense. And a lot of this comes down to your sales cycle and the accuracy of your cash flow statement or your projections. But there is certainly risk associated with scaling your business no matter what. And if you don't currently have an accurate set of financial statements, which includes a profit and loss statement, also known as an income statement, a balance sheet, and then finally a cash flow statement, then you're not ready to hire someone, because your financial house really needs to be in order for you to be able to make this decision. All right, so when we break it down into actual roles and responsibilities, this is the next step in your organizational development planning. It's assigning people to what all those roles and responsibilities are. And so as I go through how we did that in Coach's Scoop, I want you to begin taking your organizational chart and identifying who can do what. Right? Maybe it's by highlighting different areas, maybe it's by putting initials, you know, by certain buckets or by certain roles and responsibilities, but try to get a sense for who are the people in your current organization or in your current capacity that could do these different areas and which ones actually need to be hired. So going back to Coach's Scoop, here's what our breakdown of responsibilities ultimately ended up looking like. Kayla, who was our daughter, you'll notice, was primarily handling manufacturing and operations. So she did everything inside our commercial kitchen for manufacturing, from sourcing and ordering ingredients and supplies to recipe development, as well as inventory. Under operations, she drove and managed our food truck, and she sold directly to customers, right? Collected money, all while training and managing a staff of ice cream scoopers. I mostly did administration with some marketing and sales, and then Fred was assigned to repair and maintenance, along with some responsibilities also in marketing and sales. So I want you to notice that all of the family members, as well as the employees in our organization, they all participated somewhere under marketing and sales. So social media and retail sales, you'll see there's kind of some purple and blue. That's because we had not only Kayla, but also employees engaged in those two areas. And the reason is because everyone in your business should be a salesperson in some capacity. Generating revenue and making money equals your business survival. And so everyone in your organization needs to participate, all hands on deck when it comes to areas of marketing and sales. You got to find some way for everyone in your group to participate in that area, even if it's an accountant, right? What can they do to add value in that marketing and sales area? Lastly, you're going to notice the areas where we decided to require employees. These are our purple buckets, right? The primary area where we used employees was scooping ice cream. And we ran about an average of 25 employees annually. Because of the volume of employees, it really became necessary to use a payroll company. So we outsourced that, hired a payroll company that could help us with all the state and federal reporting requirements. That was an area that I didn't feel comfortable handling under administration. And so there was an opportunity to outsource that, and we did it. So rather than hiring an actual employee to do payroll, I actually hired a service provider to do that. Okay, so at this point, hopefully you've identified some functional areas or departments of your business, along with some roles and responsibilities that require coverage. You've prioritized a few of those, and in your mind, you've started to answer the priority questions, right? Do you know where you need to hire first, and do you have some solid reasoning for that decision? Okay, so next step after we've done that is compensation and benefits. And we want to determine compensation and benefits, remembering that what you choose to pay employees is really dependent on a variety of different factors. So I'm going to highlight some of the most common factors to consider. The first one is market rates. And so this may require a little bit of research on your part to understand what other companies are doing with their employment rates for a similar type job, and how are they being paid. And the reason that it's important to understand what the market rate is for that particular position is so that you can successfully recruit, right? Because if you're not paying market rate, it's going to be really, really difficult to recruit the position. And I caution you around selecting market rates based on maybe the fact that we're in Wyoming. I've had clients in the past say to me, well, if we were in Denver, I would have to pay X, right? But because we're in Wyoming, I can pay this. So one of the things to consider is the competitiveness of the field, right? If you're seeking a highly skilled person that is sought after not only in your market but other markets, and there's limited supply, then playing around with that market rate is probably not a good idea. Even if you were able to hire that person, the likelihood of being able to retain them is pretty low. Another thing to consider is relocation requirement. Are you going to have to recruit this person from outside the area, actually attract a candidate to Wyoming? That may be a consideration when you come up with what your market rate or what your compensation is going to be. And then next is retention. So once this person is retired, once this person is hired and hopefully successful, is it imperative that you retain this person? Meaning, do you invest a whole lot in training and getting this person up to speed? And if they were to leave inside of 2 years, would that be really, really difficult? Because if you truly need to retain this person, then that's a consideration when you come up with a total compensation package. So again, thinking back about Coach's Scoop, is there a retention requirement on my $10 or $12 an hour ice cream scoopers? I would say no. These people are, easy to locate, recruit, identify, and hire. I can always hire more. It's certainly high turnover, but is it devastating if one leaves? No, this isn't the case, right? Now, on the other hand, when I think about my chef, my operations manager, right, my daughter, the one that's in the kitchen, that's developing all my recipes and driving and managing my food truck, do I have a retention requirement on that position? And the answer is yes. I have a huge retention issue on that position. And so I may need to get creative with the compensation, build in some type of commission or profit sharing so that I can get some, what do they call that? Golden handcuffs on this person, hopefully encouraging them to stay. Okay, last but not least, capital and cash flow. So how much money do you actually have to hire this position? Do you have 1 month's salary plus future earnings? Do you have a capital contribution coming from an investor that gives you at least 3 months of salary, plus future earnings that this person would bring in the beginning? This is where that cash flow document becomes really important, like we talked about before, as part of your total set of financial statements in your business. And you also, again, need to understand your risk tolerance regarding cash flow. Like I said before, there isn't a perfect answer to this question of compensation and benefits. It can also be a moving target depending on the position as well as the person. When it comes to offering a complete compensation package, you want to justify not only the hourly rate and the annual salary, but you want to think about ways that benefits could add to that total package. So with benefits, there's lots of different options. And I've just listed a few here on the screen to give you an idea. I'll go back to our example of Coach's Scoop and tell you that, we paid our ice cream scoopers somewhere between $10 and $12 an hour plus tips. The tips usually got them to an hourly rate of somewhere between $15 and $17 an hour. We also offered them a free pint of ice cream at the end of each shift. We provided meals at events along with water and sports drinks in order to keep everybody, safe and hydrated. And then we also did a flexible scheduling system where when we hired our ice cream scoopers, we actually gave them the opportunity to pick up the shifts that they wanted on a first come, first served basis versus actually scheduling shifts for them. And so it created a lot of flexibility for people that maybe were working other jobs in addition to our job, and also people that wanted a lot of hours one week, but maybe not so many hours the following week. There was an opportunity for them to truly control their schedule. And so that was a big benefit that employees saw to working for our business. So once you have an idea of what your priority hires are and what the compensation package is going to be, now it's time to think about an actual recruiting strategy. And even if you think you won't be hiring for the foreseeable future, you still want to start building the momentum and messaging around your company. So let's cover now some of the top recruiting trends for 2018. So our number one trend for 2018 is using a strategy called recruitment marketing. And that's a process of nurturing and attracting talented individuals to your organization using marketing methods and tactics rather than a direct recruiting model. And so this graphic that you see on the screen, it really looks similar to a sales funnel, if any of you are familiar with the sales funnel concept. And that's because it is. The current job market is now 90% candidate driven. And what that means is that you don't actually pick talent anymore. Talent picks you. So this list of techniques on the right that make up recruitment marketing include things like creating an employer brand. This is different than your company brand. It's actually the brand you have as an employer. What are you known for when it comes to your employees? Another tactic is developing targeted messages to a specific audience that you're trying to reach. So you'll notice as we go through the rest of these trends, many of them call out a technique listed in this overall concept of recruitment marketing. So let's keep going and drill down on some of these ideas. Okay, so the second most popular strategy right now is what they call inbound recruiting. This means you proactively and continually attract candidates with the goal to make them choose you as their next employer. So your goal in inbound recruiting is to attract, convert, and engage candidates. So simply reaching out to a candidate and offering an open position is not the way to attract talent anymore. So why is that? And again, this goes back to because talent wants to pick you based on your reputation, right? They want to come after you and say, hey, you look like a great company, I'm a great employee, you should hire me, versus the other way around. Another strategy is what we call social recruiting. So just like social media has become huge for your business marketing, it's also huge for recruiting. And so this graphic just gives you an example of what social recruiting is versus what it isn't. It's really using the social media channels for recruiting. And so this term refers to different ways of using social media networks to find, attract, and hire talent. And it goes way beyond posting a current vacant job ad on your company's social network account, right? That's nice that you can say, hey, I'm hiring on Facebook, but it really offers a lot more. And so you can actually use social media networks now to proactively search for potential candidates. LinkedIn is a good source for this. You can build on that relationship with them and encourage them to apply for your vacant job positions. So it's really more about developing relationships than it is about straight advertising. And so you'll notice what social recruiting is and is not on this screen. Social recruiting is really proactively searching rather than just posting a job and praying you get some resumes. It's people driven rather than tool driven. So back to this concept of employer branding. This is the fourth strategy I want to dig a little bit deeper into. What exactly is an employer brand? Well, it describes an organization's reputation and also its popularity as an employer. And it's the employee value proposition as opposed to its more general corporate brand reputation or value proposition to its customers. So employer branding ideas are essential for building a strong and attractive employer brand. And you can see here 75% of candidates research about firms' reputation and employer brand before applying to a job. 83% of employers say that employer brand plays a significant role in their ability to hire talent. And so we know that the priority has to be on your reputation of being a good employer, because companies with a bad reputation not only struggle to attract candidates, but they also struggle to retain employees. And this is why employer branding is one of the top recruitment trends for 2018. I had a former client that was a spin-out company from the University of Wyoming. And one of the things that that business truly focused on was employer branding really within the University of Wyoming. They wanted to be known as the hot technology startup to go and work for if you were about to graduate from school. And so they invested a lot of time and energy in that employer brand as being the hot tech startup in the Laramie area. And it worked beautifully. They had a consistent stream of potential candidates for any position, and they were able to, create a talent pool, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. All right, the next trend in recruiting is what we call the candidate experience. And this may be obvious that, of course, you want every candidate that interviews with you to have a good experience, but it actually requires planning and work to make sure that that happens. And so the candidate experience, is current, past, and potential future candidates' overall perception of your company's recruiting process. So it's the whole process from beginning to end, from them researching your brand and understanding what your reputation is, to actually applying for your position, to the length of time that it took to hear back from someone about what the process was going to be, to what their experience was interviewing, all the way through onboarding. And it's based on the candidate's feelings. It's based on their behaviors and attitudes that they experience during the whole recruiting process, from, again, sourcing and screening to interviewing, hiring, and onboarding. So because candidates who have had a positive experience in your recruiting process, the bottom line is they're more likely to accept your job offer. But if for some reason you don't offer them the position because maybe they were, runner-up, to the best candidate, they might reapply in the future. And most importantly, they might refer other people to your companies. So we can see here that 97% of candidates who had a positive experience are willing to refer others to apply to your business. And we know that superstar employees often have friends that could also be superstar employees. I know in our business, some of our best employees, our best ice cream scoopers, were friends of other employees or even siblings of other employees, right? That would refer them after a summer experience that they had with us. And that was very, very valuable. Okay, so I mentioned talent pools before. This is a stat that came from Glassdoor's HR and recruiting stats for 2018. 76% of hiring managers say that attracting top talent is their greatest challenge. So it's not just an issue here in Wyoming. I can tell you that I've recruited and hired employees in major markets all over the United States, and I always hear the same complaint from companies. And that standard line is, well, it's really hard to find good people here. And so I want to tell you that it's hard to find good people everywhere. And much of the reason really comes down to your ability and time that you've invested in these types of recruiting strategies, right? If you don't start out with a talent pool of qualified candidates, then it's going to be really difficult to find the right person for your job. And that requires a consistent and a persistent approach. So what is a talent pool? A talent pool is essentially a database of candidates' profiles that are interested in working for your company. So it's a group of suitable candidates who've expressed interest in you as their employer. And talent pools consist of candidates that have applied for your open job positions, but also sourced or referred candidates, or maybe runner-up candidates, other candidates that have willingly joined your talent network, maybe in an inbound way from a resource that you have through a social network. So recruiters and HR managers, what they do is they use talent pools as a reserve of interesting talent that they can turn to when they need to fill a certain position. So you've got this pool of candidates, on hand at all times. And what that means is you're always recruiting and you're trying to get your network to recruit for you. So this can be as sophisticated as a software program that manages, all of this information on people. It can also be as simple as a file folder in a drawer, in a locked drawer, hopefully, of applications. But maintaining some sort of talent pool is an important recruitment strategy that all business owners should be using regardless of your size. All right, guys, so now that we understand the recruiting trends, let's talk about the places that you can go to actually post your open position. So hopefully we're activating all of our social networks. We've been doing a lot of these recruiting strategies up front, but there is a point that you get to in this process where now it's time to actually advertise the job and get it up on some job boards. And so this is a list of job boards as well as job search engines where you can post your position for free or a paid listing. Or a search engine is going to pull that job post from somewhere else across lots of different websites and aggregate that data for users. So most of these websites are one or the other. One of them is both. Indeed.com is an example of both a job board and a job search engine. It's one of the reasons it's the leading job site. It has millions of job listings from thousands of different websites, including company career sites, other job boards, newspaper classifieds, associations, other online sources for job postings. In addition to that, in addition to aggregating all of that data into Indeed.com, you as an employer can also go directly onto Indeed.com and generate your own posting. You may notice if you've ever been on Indeed.com before that there's a lot of duplicate postings. It's the same job that is coming up 2 or 3 times in one search. That's because they have aggregated the data and pulled it from a couple of different sites. And maybe for one reason or another, it's not recognizing that it's the same job posting. And then maybe that company has gone on and posted it directly. But I say the more the merrier, right? It's just more hits that you potentially get on your job ad. It's okay if you're up there a couple different times. The next is careerbuilder.com. Most of you are probably familiar with this. They've been around for longer than a decade. They were one of the first job boards to come out. They secure job listings directly from employers. You have to pay in order to get a posting on their site. They've also expanded their website through local listings by partnering with a lot of different newspapers. So it's possible if you advertise, for example, in the Casper Star Tribune and you pay for an online listing, that they duplicate that listing onto careerbuilder.com because careerbuilder.com incorporates their online classifieds. Another popular one is dice.com. Dice is actually the leading job site for tech workers, technology job seekers. You can search on this site by company, by job title, keyword, employment type, and location. A lot of tech workers, are looking to work with specific companies. Again, this gets back to your company brand and recruitment brand and employer brand. Glassdoor.com. Glassdoor members so this is a membership site. You pay a monthly subscription fee in order to be a member of Glassdoor, but as a member, you can see the latest job listings and get access to user-generated content, including company-specific salary reports. There's also ratings and reviews, so this gets back to your employer reputation. Sometimes people will post interview questions if they've gone through, an interview process with that company. There's all kinds of different information that you can find on businesses in Glassdoor. The next is Google for Jobs. So this is an example of just a job search engine site. Because Google is a search engine, you can simply type a job or a posting or interest in a specific area into the Google search bar. And you're looking for an ice cream scooper, positions in Denver, you can type that into the Google search bar, click enter, and then Google's going to pull up any related listings to that. Idealist.com, I don't know if we have any people on the line that are in the nonprofit world. But idealist.com is the premier clearinghouse for information on full-time internships as well as volunteer positions within the nonprofit sector. So that might be a consideration for some of you. And then LinkedIn, of course, has become really popular. It's the world's largest professional network on the internet. You can search for jobs here. You can identify contacts at specific employers who are advertising vacancies. You can follow companies of interest on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great recruiter tool and a terrific platform to use. LinkedUp.com, this one's not quite as popular, but it did make the top 10 list. This only posts jobs provided on company websites. So it's a little bit more specific. It provides applicants often with unadvertised jobs. There's a lot of businesses out there that maybe aren't actively recruiting or actively advertising for a position, but they'll post that there is a job opportunity or an opening on a specific page on their website. And so maybe these are positions that they just always hire for. So for example, a CPA firm may always have an opening for a contract controller, or they may always have an opening for an entry-level, accountant. It's something that they just continually recruit for, but maybe they're not advertising for it. That's what linkup.com is all about. And then last but not least is monster.com. This is one of the original job boards. They came out actually before careerbuilder.com, and then CareerBuilder kind of surpassed them in popularity. And so they changed their business model a touch, and it really expanded to include a variety of other resources and applications for job seekers. They'll help you build your resume and do all different, interview questions and things that help actual job seekers, but they are still a job board. It is a paid listing site on monster.com. And then finally, niche job sites or places where you can post that locally. I always encourage people to get in touch with their local chamber of commerce or other, business professional networking groups, Leadership Wyoming. There's lots of different organizations that will send out that job opportunity across their networks. And so you want to hook up or sync in with those types of resources. Okay, guys, so we are fastly approaching our questioning area, and I want to get a sense from the group. Do you believe that your business has an employer brand? So understanding now more about the employer brand, what do you think? Do you think your business actually has a reputation as an employer? And I'm not going to ask you, whether it's good or bad. I really just want to know, do you believe you have a brand at this point? So this is just an easy yes or no question. And I'll give you guys a few seconds to respond. We've got about half the vote in right now. Do you have an employer brand? Some of this may come down to the size of your business at this point, right? If you've never hired an employee, if you don't have any employees on board right now, you haven't scaled your business, then your answer might be no. And that's okay. That's what this webinar was about. Okay, we've got almost all the votes in. Give you a few more seconds. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close that out and let's share this. So we just have a few people, right? 17% say they think they have an employer brand, but the overwhelming majority of you don't have an employer brand at this point. So hopefully one of the takeaways of this webinar is that it's time. If you're going to look at scaling and recruiting people into your business, then it's time to start with an employer brand. And then recognizing all of those different job boards that we listed just a couple minutes ago, what job boards have you used before? So you can select as many as makes sense to you here. Select one or more of the following. Have you used Indeed.com before, or did you notice that Indeed picked up a listing that you had posted before? How about CareerBuilder? Are you active on LinkedIn? Did you do anything with LinkedIn? When you had an opportunity that came up in your business, did you use your personal website? Okay, almost half of the vote in. Give you guys a few more minutes, seconds. Let's see. All right, we'll go ahead and close that out and share these. Okay, kind of a mixed bag here. It's good to see that Indeed continues in their number one spot here, 67% of you. About 17% of you used Career Builder. Interesting, because I know that's an investment for some employers. LinkedIn.com, 33%, and then most of you are getting something on your personal website, 33% there as well. Terrific. Okay, so I want to open it up for questions now based on what we covered today. And I'll get Jonathan involved in this if he's got anything that's come across the screen since we've gotten started here. We'll give you guys a couple of seconds to load in some questions if you have any. Jonathan, did any questions come to mind as I went through some of this content or some of this information?
The one thing that I was thinking about is the family aspect. You know, there are people that you can hire that are within your family in some cases, and depending on the family, you know, I guess how would you weigh that? Should I employ someone in my family versus should I employ someone outside the family? And you know, what does that really look like to my business? Because there could be some you know, things that you might not necessarily could say or do or have that person do based on, say, past relationship stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does seem like a lot of people do hire within the family organization, but once that's done, or you don't want to do that, what's kind of your outlook on that?
Yeah, family dynamics can be tough. You know, I've had both businesses that I've owned where I only have, you know, outside people as employees, and then obviously with this example today of Coach's Scoop, this was a family-run business, and it was two parents and an adult child. And so what I always tell clients is that if you are going to hire a family member, the most important aspect of the relationship is clarity. Everybody needs to be clear about what the roles, responsibilities, and expectations are, and they need to be in writing, and you need to revisit them on an ongoing, regular basis. It can't be a conversation that you had one time at the dinner table and then everyone casually agreed to it. It needs to be specific, and clarity is really the key and your friend in this situation. So ambiguity doesn't work when it comes to family dynamics and family relationships and business. It's all about knowing what everyone agreed to and knowing what those parameters are, and then opening that up for discussion on an ongoing, regular basis. So not only did we have a weekly business meeting between my husband, myself, and our daughter, but then on a monthly basis, we sat down and reviewed all of the financials together and then opened it up for transparency and questions. And so this was an opportunity to say, hey, you know, we're doing a little bit better financially, so is there a way that we could pay more money to different family members or different people that were, you know, in the business? And it gave Kayla an opportunity to consistently be bringing up concerns if she had them throughout the process. We ran that family business for 7 years, and there were a tremendous number of transitions that happened through that 7-year period. And if we hadn't have been talking and communicating on an ongoing, regular basis, it would have been tough.
Yes, definitely. You know, another thing that I wanted to point out too was, you know, if you are branding your business or your the branding that you were talking about for to attract employees, what if you're a company that wasn't so good at it, and now you're realizing that you have branded yourself as a terrible employer? What are some measures you can do to turn that around and rebrand yourself?
Yeah, great question. And so if you're starting from behind, then the important thing is to start getting messaging out there contrary to the negative reputation that you currently have. So the best way to turn around your poor reputation is to have a positive experience. So what are the things that you can do through the recruiting process in order to make it a positive experience for the people that do come through your door? And it can be simple things like don't make someone wait when they come in for an interview. Welcome them at the door. Offer them something to drink. Make them feel like they're part of the team before you've even hired them. You know, coming up with strategies and ways that you can make people smile versus maybe question or be concerned through that recruiting process can go a long way in branding you as, you know, a kind, involved, engaged employer. Being as organized as you can possibly be through that recruiting process is also really helpful. Again, when you're hiring somebody, ambiguity is not your friend. People want to understand exactly what the expectations are, exactly what the roles and responsibilities are, so that they can answer the question of whether or not they want to come work for you, whether or not that job is a fit for them. And so just taking measures during the recruiting process can sometimes turn around your reputation, because if someone had a good experience while interviewing for your business, that's something they were going to communicate to a variety of different people, right? They're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their family members, hey, I had a great interview today, and it was a good experience for me. Okay, it looks like we've got a question, and it says, in an area like Jackson, where we have 10 pages of help wanted ads and no places to live, how would a small business attract employees and especially compete with big dog businesses in attracting employees? Okay, great question, right? And this is obviously it's common in Jackson, and it's common in other places in Wyoming as well. Sheridan struggles with this. Even Laramie struggles with this a little bit as far as having affordable housing, you know, for entry-level employees. And so really what this comes down to is reputation and employer branding. You want to rely less on posting your job and more on building your employer brand and your reputation for being a great place to work. I don't know what your specific business is or the type of position that you're hiring, but for example, if you're a retail business and you know that's a pretty popular thing that is being advertised in the Jackson area, what you're trying to do is differentiate yourself from other employers so that people are more attracted to your position than they are to the other positions. So not only do you want your job ad to not look and feel like the 10 pages of help wanted ads that are currently listed, but you want your actual job to have some differentiation from the other positions that may be similar. And so this may involve getting creative around what type of training opportunities do you offer? What type of vacation options are there? What type of scheduling flexibility can you promote? You know, what's a compensation package that would be more interesting or intriguing than a competitor that is trying to hire the same type of people? And of course, if you want, you know, more ideas or if you want to brainstorm about this further, we're happy to talk to you offline. We do one-on-one business counseling through the Women's Business Center, and would love to help you come up with a recruiting plan that makes sense specifically for your business. But hopefully I gave you a couple of ideas there. All right, Jonathan, we're coming up to our last 5 minutes here. Do you have anything else to add?
No, this has been great. Thank you for all the information and all the links. Let's see. I can't think of any other questions to ask, and no other questions have come up.
Okay, terrific. So this is just a contact page if anybody wants to contact any of us directly. These are our business counselors and directors here at the WWBC, and you'll see Jonathan and my name at the bottom of the screen. I also want to mention that our next webinar next month, we do this on the third Thursday of each month from 12 to 1. We also record each webinar, like I mentioned previously. And we put it on our YouTube channel. So if for some reason you can't attend a webinar, but you're interested in the content, you could also go to youtube.com, enter in Wyoming Women's Business Center, and you'll find all of our recordings there. So our next webinar is on Thursday, October 25th. It's from 12 to noon, and it's sort of part 2 of this webinar, although if you miss this one, you don't have to worry about it. This one has new content, but it's called Leading, Managing, and Employee Turnover. So after you hire those people, what does that look like? And what do you need to know about yourself, and what do you need to know about them in order to manage them well? So when we close out this webinar today, a survey is going to pop up. I'd really appreciate it if you'd fill out that survey. It helps us know whether we're hitting the mark with these webinars, and if you enjoyed the content. And also, if you have ideas for future webinars, we want to be responsive to our client base out there, and we certainly read every single survey. So go ahead and fill that out when we close out this webinar. And I just want to thank everybody again for attending today. And we will see you next month on Thursday, October 25th. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Christine.